Hello and welcome once again to the Dr. Zeero Xiron Free Magic Secrets Show, where we investigate all forms of magic, talk about the cool book Apex Unhinged that I released not so long ago, talk about all the cool music that I've been making through Suno, which is all posted, talk about all kinds of things and stuff, social issues, little bits and pieces, things about the occult community, a little bit of everything on this show, if you didn't know. And today I wanted to talk about, I guess, a little bit about mental health and the dangers of magic in and of itself when it's taken to fanatic levels. And magic is something that should be taken to fanatical levels. You should be evolving it and growing it and taking it to the extremes. But there comes a certain point where if you aren't careful, you break through a certain barrier and things that aren't real start to become very, very real. And it can lead to all kinds of dangerous delusional thinking that can lead to one's downfall, if not through serious mental health challenges and delusional states. Sometimes it can lead to a person's demise, quite literally. So one example that I wanted to bring up is we've all seen the movie The Craft. It's cheesy. It's very much fiction. But there's some stuff that they get right, and that is actually like legitimate. And the overall things, in that film, I guess, first, like it was important that they were Catholic schoolgirls at a Catholic place, because that's all part of the story that isn't. They don't really talk about it in the film. It's just sort of there, and there's all kinds of subtext that you can read into that, but all that repression and stuff. Like if that had been focused more, the movie would have been a harder sell for Hollywood. It would have kicked up more dirt, and more people probably would have protested that film if it got too heavy into like the repressed Catholic sort of stuff. I mean, look what happened to Kevin Smith just putting out Dogma in '99. People picketing, sending death threats, all this stuff. And Dogma's just like a silly comedy. It's pretty ridiculous. I watched it recently. I guess it holds up in its own way. It is what it is. That's how I felt like even when it came out. I don't think it's Kevin Smith's best movie or anything like that. It gets a lot of credit as being one of his best, but I really don't think it is, to be honest. But it holds the tension, blah, 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 blah. Another thing they got right in The Craft was they had someone who worked on that film that was like a consultant, someone who was like an actual witch who actually knew what they were talking about. And they had a hand in sculpting the film. Like, number one, the idea that they turned to basically they turned to pantheism, or maybe panentheism, you could say. And they turned to pantheism as in, the universe, everything that exists as, the great body of that which exists and their fusion to it. And they were calling it Manu or Mano. I forget. It's like a non-existent deity because they didn't want to put a real deity in there because they didn't want to send a bunch of kids watching the movie to go start working with something very specific and, that has real mythology attached to it and a real history of people worshiping it or being part of it. So they made an invention. But even though it's an invention, we're still talking about like their concept of like gnosis with a more pantheistic view on that playing field. And then also a nice little touch, if you never noticed, there's a scene where for all the bogus, hokey pokey, Hollywood sort of magic stuff they're doing, there is a scene where Nancy is reading, I think it was actually the book Elements of Kabbalah, because if you look, she's got the Tree of Life is on the cover of a book she's reading. So like Nancy is quietly studying the Kabbalah, or at least the Tree of Life. Because Tree of Life isn't the Kabbalah, it's Kabbalah just means the teachings, mystical teachings, and Tree of Life is just one of those teachings. But she was definitely had her head in that, and if she had her head in that, she was smart enough to know what the Qliphoth was. So that's another sorry, got interrupted there. I was recording in a rec room somewhere in an apartment building, and someone walked in. So let us continue here. Where I was going with this craft monologue is quite simply, you don't want to end up like Nancy at the end of the craft. And this is the dangers of magic, is that you very much can end up like that. And mental hospitals and psych wards have been filled for many, many years of people who went over the edge with all this stuff. Now, there's people who I feel like they've gone over the edge with all this stuff, but they're cheery and joyful about it, and they're totally in it. And then there's people who it's driven them to their doom. So, there's people on my mind that I could say directly that I don't necessarily want to say. And, some people that have been led to their untimely demise by a bunch of factors involving the quest of magic. Like, I've known people from afar. Because, in my own life, most of the people I know that have gotten really, really into magic have stopped short at a certain point. And haven't turned into raving lunatics. I'm kind of seen as the raving lunatic of the bunch. But if people are paying attention to the things I'm saying and what I'm really about, I'm not pushing a bunch of imaginary stuff. Everything that I'm talking about, there are safeguards, I don't let my imagination take over and start creating things that aren't necessarily real. And that's the thing with the technology of imagination. A lot of things can happen. So this is, I guess, sort of my show and my existence here as Zeero Xiron has been kind of warning people about the pitfall of this sort of trap, that you can get into. And I spent today watching a bunch of different videos from various people in the occult world and their video content, and everybody's on YouTube and stuff. And again, I don't want to throw out names, but I sit there and I listen to someone talk for an hour long about all manner of things that are absolutely cuckoo and impossible to be confirmed. And it's not just that one person, it's many, many people. But I see many, many people that are very lost in their imaginary world yet they come off as, totally sane. Because it, how can I put it? Where a person is saying stuff that, if someone, physically seemed very, very neurotic or rocking back and forth or had all the strange mannerisms and stuff, they would think, oh, this person's lost their mind, blah, blah, blah. They're living in a complete fabrication that they've created. And there's other people, like I said, that are very straight-faced or very even jolly and just regurgitating all this stuff. And this is like one of these great moments where, again, don't want to name names, but, someone may have, someone passed recently, other people have passed recently, or even in the past, whatever years. This could be a moment to take a step back and really reinterpret what you're doing and why you're doing it. Now, the thing with magic is that's always evolving and it's always like an upgrade. Most people start out, I think, they're into witchcraft for the most part. Like that's kind of like the gateway. That's the easily palatable start to magical thinking. And then there's some people who, maybe they start off learning about the alchemy stuff, or maybe they catch wind of these ceremonial magicians or what a magician really is. Because, I'm the kind of person who came from more of a classic witchy sort of approach and background and understanding of things. And it wasn't until I got much older in my 30s that I started to really, really deep research the whole history of magic, which led to me really discovering why the Tree of Life, all kinds of different systems, and ended up studying everything, And, even though I never used the term left-hand path or whatever, I would, if you looked at me when I was, especially in my 20s and such, I was definitely had more of these sort of ideas, but I was never going out of my way to try to work with demons and deities and stuff. I didn't have a problem with anybody doing so. And I was a journalist back in the day. I still kind of am. I'm basically retired. Not with the money, not with a pension, not with anything. And I'm not as old as you'd think. But I said enough was enough, and I'm done with that part of my life. I don't want to do it anymore, basically. I still got the chops, but I'm not active. So I semi-retired from that whole spiel. But as a heavy metal journalist, I was really aggressively pushing all this extreme metal stuff, and especially black and death metal. And the sort of black metal and death metal that I was really pushing and propagandizing, filled with, Cliff Oth references and this more modern left-hand path sort of thinking and talking about all these different demons or whatever. And back then I was like, oh, I don't care. It's all chaos and this, and let's spread all these bad ideas and, this and this. And, oh, down with the church and this, and, more typical angry heavy metal sort of thinking that I was coming from. But, and, part of me doing this channel is kind of making up for that, because I was pushing all kinds of stuff that I didn't even really understand, and furthermore didn't really believe in. And it's more like chaos for chaos sakes. I was like a fucking gremlin running around. They fed me after midnight. Now I'm just running around making all the trouble in the world. And that was kind of me in a nutshell. Just chaos and madness and wackiness and taking everything to extremes, but not really participating in all that myself. It was more like I was just a propagandist for a bunch of shit that I really half understood and didn't completely grasp. But now that I completely grasp all this stuff, yeah, there's no way I would go back to promoting all that shit. And that's kind of also a big issue with me, because I did play in a number of bands, extreme metal stuff. And, you know, my lyrics were never typical hate-filled black metal, you know, burn things down and, you know, attack. So anyway, as I was saying, most people, they're into witchcraft, and they finally get to the point where they get to upgrade to high magic. And now this becomes the next trajectory. Most people don't get to that point. And like I said, I was in my 30s. Some people are in their 20s. Some people, you know, now that we have social media, we got YouTube, and there's tons of people talking about magic on YouTube. It's a lot easier to find these ideas, because like, I come from growing up in a vacuum with no money, very, very poor. And all the stuff that I ever really knew about witchcraft was from a lot of like the easier books to acquire that a lot of people could get their hands on. I never even had a copy of the Witch's Bible. The thing was, like, it would be looked at like contraband in the house that I grew up in, because I had very sternly Catholic adults around me who would certainly confiscate it from me. So it's like one of those things that I had to hide. But it never really like occurred to me like, you should buy a copy of this stuff and stash it with one of your friends who you could, you know, I just didn't think of these very obvious things. But the truth is, so it's like, you know, you got my hands on stuff like Satanic Bible and the old Necronomicon, but I saw through that one very easily, because it's like, it's fiction. But a lot of people have, taken ideas of rituals from it and gave them a framework, and they were able to make things their own. But, books like that, like stuff from like Scott Cunningham or the Llewellyn kind of books that were easier to acquire, So it was sort of like I would say the things that really like pioneered me and the people that I knew, and especially I'd say a lot of people probably in the 90s, is like images speak an awful lot. And like the allure of witchcraft, the aesthetic and all the cool imagery and all the old grainy black and white photos of like people who are like naked in rituals, and there's chalices, and there's someone in a robe with a cool dagger, and they're drinking out of cups, and there's torches with fires, and they're dancing around the woods and stuff like that. You get those images in your head. That's really what you need to keep moving forward. But as I was saying, like there's a certain cutoff point where you go to the next direction, and it all has to do with all this high magic, ceremonial magic, the extreme nature of the Qliphoth, and all these sort of things. And it has to be warned that it's a slippery slope, and it consumes you. So, just for anybody out there who might be, consumed by these ideas, if you know that. So, I guess I have to say kind of like what I've expressed over and over and over on this channel. For me, I don't work with any deities or demons or daemons, currently. Had my fun little experiments, and I've gleaned interesting knowledge. But I always did so from the perspective that a deity or daemon of any kind of these beings or gods, goddesses, whatever, they're a symbol. They're ultimately a symbol for a psychology, a slice of my own psychology that exists within me, but also is projected out into the universe, because these symbolic thought forms, these mythological life forms, they represent all kind of manner of external stimuli and different factors of the universe. But most importantly, if they are entities in the sense that is overpowering, it's because they are energies. Because everything is energy, right? And when you put a face on a bunch of these factors, not only like what your conscious self thinks, your shadow self thinks, your energetic self thinks, your auric response to it, your quote unquote astral response to it, psychological response to it, emotional response to it, combined with the universe itself and whatever the slice of the universe and whatever form that you're turning into a thought form, embedded with all the energy and everything, it becomes very, very, very real, because in that sense it is very, very, very real. However, they aren't like real people, just beyond the veil. And this is the cutoff of my thinking. And this is the danger, because, it's one thing to approach Satan from the perspective that I just described. It's another to be like, Satan is a real person, like a real individual, and exists on the other side, and that person, that being, is literally like in contact and advising me and a part of me and all this stuff. And again, this is the danger of all left-hand path shit, because YouTube and social media and the internet is just full of practitioners who are very much looking at it from that perspective. And then, you're no longer a magician, really, and it becomes like religion in and of itself. It's like you've formed a whole new religion. And I believe in freedom of religion. Ultimately, even if I'm opposed to religions, a lot of religions I'm opposed to. Some I'm friendly towards. I just don't buy into, because I understand that I'm not against all religions. I just I have my own ideas, and I think certain things are good or bad or detrimental, I should say. And when you start getting to this point that all these infernal beings, they're real people, and you're in concert with them, and then you become their puppet of all these thought forms that are now running the show. This is dangerous cuckoo thinking, dude. And now I also wanted to add that when you talk about entities and such, now, are ghosts real? Maybe. Are there invisible entities that maybe have their own intelligence? Maybe. Can I confirm that? Definitely? Not exactly. But if such things exist, the point is, when you go into ritual and you open yourself to the invisible world, and then you open yourself as a mediumistic conduit, if that is possible, just because something says it's Belial, or something tells you it's Lilith, or something tells you that it's Satan, or something tells you it's Lucifer, or something, Hecate or whatever, it doesn't mean that's actually what it is. Because if invisible entities with their own intelligence are real and can, communicate with us on this energetic, mediumistic level, if we really hone into it, they're going to lie and just tell you whatever you want to hear because they're, quote unquote astral parasites. And this is the other danger of magic. Giving yourself to that. And when you start having experiences that are really creations of your own mind, that's when you veer off into a delusional land. And as I said, I'm making this video right now because I really hope that if there's anyone out there who's like right on that cusp, maybe my words will make some sense to you and maybe pull you back a little bit from a certain kind of precipice. So one thing I wanted to talk about as we wrap this up, and it's something that maybe you discover a little bit later. Maybe it isn't clear at the beginning. And this is this message that I'm about to relay. If for anybody who like runs another YouTube channel, or it might be another occult person speaking their mind about all these magic topics on YouTube and such, and there's a ton of you. I know a bunch of you get my stuff. So this one's for you guys. So what I guess the thing that I'm saying right now is that when you go on your path, there's all kinds of stuff that doesn't occur to you at first because your intelligence grows and your ability to rationalize things grows and etc. One thing you'll learn is that propaganda is part of your path, and learning how to wield propaganda and utilize it correctly to get your message out. And you are on social media promoting and propagating your messages. And again, there's no shame in that. Propaganda is a good thing. It's a way to seed your opinion. It could be used for good or ill. It's not. Propaganda is neutral. Okay, so but it's an art form. It's a form of magic in and of itself. And the thing is, this moment in time, if you're hearing this and you agree with me, this would be a nice point in time to really, like, if you agree with a lot of what I'm saying here, the idea of gods and goddesses as like literal people behind the veil, if you're not believing that, maybe you should talk a bit about how that's not really happening, because you don't want to alienate people necessarily, but mental health battles are a war, dude, and we're propagandists of mind expansion and spiritual expansion, energetic expansion, all these things. They can go horribly, horribly wrong to an unhealthy mind. So I do want to impress that you should definitely take stock of your propaganda and your intended effect. A lot of people will make videos about all kinds of really hardcore topics, never thinking that, I want to put it like this, in a more general sense. Now, for instance, there's a bookstore in the town that I live in, and it's like, my opinion, like the best occult bookstore I've ever seen, right? I'm not going to say the name, because the thing is, like, even though I'm into what I'm into, and I'm constantly promoting magic stuff in this town and giving out books to different people and, flyers or keying them into different events, or, I'm always kind of spreading the message, but I do so in a restrained sense, where I try not to lead people somewhere that, they're going to walk off a cliff of madness. And even though the greatest occult bookstore is in town right now, I never ever take people to it, and I never ever promote it. I just kind of know about it. It's like my own personal armory, because The reason why, I feel like magic is something that someone should naturally come to, and they should naturally seek it out. And as they have and develop new ideas about it, that's when they seek out the new ideas. I feel like it's not so much as like giving someone a cheat sheet of like, oh, here's like the fucking top 300 like hardcore magic books you ever want to read, and then it's all just on one website, which I know it is, but it's a little different when everything's physically in front of you, right? And basically, like, he's got everything you could ever want, and all kinds of super, super deep demonology, black magic, everything in black magic. He's got it all, right? It's like all that stuff. If you teach someone the tree of life, like 9,900 million times out of a billion, no one's gonna think like, so how does this thing turn evil? What's the cliff off? Like, they never think, like, because the most natural, obvious thing to, ponder is like, if something is quote unquote holy, then something must be unholy about it as well, because it has the dual existence. So no one's ever like thinking like, oh, here's the tree of life, and it's like the puzzle box from Hellraiser. If you open it the other way, they're not going to think that naturally unless you tell them. So it's sort of like, I feel like it's like rigging someone's journey when you bring them to an armory like that, and you unload all these super hardcore topics in a very easy to find fashion. I feel like it's rigging the deck in a very unnatural way, and I feel like it's poor sportsmanship, kind of in a sense, because magic is a game, and we're all playing a game with each other. But there's the youngins that aren't as weathered or don't have the experience, and they're susceptible to the older folks who have been around, and trying to raise them right, get them in the right direction, all that stuff. And I feel like it just dropping a 15-year-old in that store and being like, have at it, here's $1,000, just get everything you want. That's the wrong way to go, because I feel like, again, it's not that I'm against, like I said, like my problem with various black magic books that come out. It's like, I feel it should be like a discreet underground thing, discreet and underground. And if you know where to get it, you can get it, and you got to like search for it and find it. And there's always something new, and it's like cool to like go searching and digging and finding all these like hidden taboo books and all this stuff. I'm just saying, like, think about your channel the same way. Think about all the stuff you're putting out in the exact same way. I feel like there has to be restraint. And you could say, oh, you sound like a conservative old man or something, but not really. I'm just saying, let them find the deeper, more hardcore stuff when they're seeking it out themselves and when they're ready for it, as opposed to just handing them a giant pile of stuff and being like, here you go. And, again, a prime example of the complete opposite of Dr. Zero's way of thinking is that one silly pants guy that lives in Utah and has that label, that book label that puts out all those black magic books about every single thing on the topic, and then slams the whole world with every video he could ever make about every single topic as loud and bold as possible to get everybody's attention and suck them all in because he wants to be the Antichrist for shits and giggles. It's just that whole approach is just no. Sometimes you should stay in the shadows. It's like, you don't want to necessarily. Well, I mean, it's an approach. But the things that you promote beget seeds which beget gardens. And the question you really got to ask yourself is, what sort of garden are you growing? And furthermore, how are you going to cultivate it? How are you going to, trim it all up? How are you going to manage it? So that's just food for thought. I'm just asking you all, anyone listening, like, do put a little thought into perhaps, am I pushing shit that people shouldn't really, anyone at the general public should just be diving into? But again, you're not going to listen to me. A lot of you guys, that's why you have got all the subscribers and stuff. That's why I'm a marginal character in this big old social media game. Not really, but kind of. At least with this, because I'm not fucking having rituals to Satan that I'm filming, and I'm not pushing all kinds of stuff that people really want to seek out and hear. They don't want to listen to necessarily my hitting a brick wall of my version of magic, which may not be as appealing, but is more in line with martial arts thinking. I guess that's a big thing. And something else I wanted to bring up, something that will help everyone, is when I read The Art of Peace by Morihei Ueshiba, and then I studied a lot about Aikido. And even though I'm not like a physical person, I don't do like physical martial arts and all that shit. The discipline and the ethos and the philosophy of The Art of Peace helped me shape my entire magical outlook. Like all of my, I don't want to say a cheesy word like spell work, but it would be a lie to say I'm not casting my own little spell, or that I don't cast my own little spells. I just don't do it in the way that most people are familiar with or thinking about. But the wizardly one is always at play.
Tick tock, tick creeps the night.